that I was like Clinton, I was going to be the comeback kid. I said, no, I'm probably going to be, I may be the comeback grandfather, but I'm not likely to be a comeback kid at this stage. But go ahead.
We all talk about the drilling and what we need to do to pull natural resources out of this country, but there seems to be something that stops every president in there from really pursuing it. And I'm wondering how the environmentalists have pulled that off over so many years that we've been unable to tap into that and leaving us at the mercy of world conditions. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that they worked very carefully. They elected people and they intimidated people, and we allowed the fights to get pinned in places that make no sense. Now, let me give you an example. The Bush administration spent a huge amount of effort on trying to drill in the Alaskan wildlife area. Okay, now whether you're for it or against it, that's guaranteed to be a symbolic fight in which people just fight forever. The Chukchi Sea, which is part of Alaska, may have as much oil as the Gulf of Mexico. The same amount of energy spent cleaning up the regulations and the litigation to allow development of the Chukchi Sea would have had far less emotional power on the left. And so you have to look at all of these different patterns. I mean, the great irony of the last decade, this is one of those things that people are going to write about 100 years from now. The left, in order to get control of your life, has to make you believe that we're running out of energy and therefore we have to have government take care of us. In the last decade, we have developed a deep drilling technology which started offshore and is now used in shale onshore. And we can now go down 8,000 to 10,000 feet and then go out 4 miles in every direction. The result is, for the first time, shale gas is commercially profitable. Well, the amount of natural gas available in the United States went from a 7-year supply 10 years ago to a 115-year supply today. And they just discovered a very large oil find in Ohio. And I was told last night by an expert in this field that you will see a drop in American dependence on foreign oil with or without Obama because the new technologies enable us to develop here. But if you look at what he wants to eliminate, when he talks about eliminating the oil deal, he's actually not talking about the big majors. His major proposal kills the independents who do 95% of the drilling in the United States. Because they are threatening the entire left because we may suddenly have a massive surplus of oil and gas. And every argument on the left about running, peak oil is about to look stupid. And so they're trying to find some way to smother this before it becomes totally obvious. It's just amazing. Way back there, yes, sir.
As president, would you sign the fair tax bill S-13 if it was put on your desk?
If it was put on my desk, I would, but I think that that's frankly not practical to President.
I mean, it's one of the solutions to Social Security.
Yeah, but remember, it also involves repealing the income tax amendment.
That's part of it.
It's a big, big change. What I've told Neil Bortz, who was the co-author of the idea originally, is that I would be very prepared in the first year of my presidency to create a commission nationally and 435 congressional district commissions to hold hearings all year, to put on the internet ways you could actually take your budget, you could work out what would it mean to you. When you talk about a change the scale of eliminating the income tax and going to a transaction tax, that is such a gigantic change. You had better make sure the American people understand it before you do it. I think it's literally impossible to get a bill through before you've prepared the country to understand it. And I think in the process you'll find tweaks you need to make that won't be obvious to us until we go out and try it. But I am prepared to have the fair tax go through a very exhaustive process of public involvement. Okay.
This is in relation to just like Obamacare in general. Are you familiar with what Hawaii did a couple years back for like universal care for children? Where they did like universal health care just for adolescents, and so many people jumped into the system that it overloaded the system and went bankrupt within 7 months. Yes. With the way the country is going broke, how do we expect to pay for Obamacare?
Well, I don't expect to pay for Obamacare because the first item on any contract with America would be repealing it. And I think it's the only practical thing to do. You raise a good point, though. I helped found the Center for Health Transformation. And back in 2002, I wrote a book called Saving Lives and Saving Money, outlining a doctor-patient-centered model of reform that would get us back to a market, get us back to transparency of cost and quality. And you can't talk about healthcare as though it's a series of government bureaucrats. I mean, if you don't have enough doctors, if you don't have enough nurses, if you don't have enough facilities, all you do if you go to universal systems is you guarantee that the system collapses. And so I think you got to think about the whole system, and you got to recognize that in the end, healthcare is very local. Healthcare is very personal. And the idea of I had a doctor in Cedar Rapids who gave me the letter she had just gotten. She's a family practitioner. She just gotten a letter from the from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services in Washington instructing her on how she should run part of her office. And she said, you know, this letter was written by somebody who's not a doctor, doesn't live in Cedar Rapids, has probably never been in Iowa, has no idea what it's like to run a doctor's office. And she said it's truly stupid. And that's what we're up against right now, and that's why I think you don't just want to repeal Obamacare, you want to really rethink the entire Washington-centered model and get away, and by the way, I'm as critical of insurance company bureaucracies as I am of government bureaucracies. I think you want to go to a much less red tape, much more doctor-patient centered model, but with real transparency of price and quality. I think, yes ma'am.
That was basically the question I was going to ask. I've heard that you can't repeal Obamacare with an executive order.
You can't. No,
How
it is.
do you get rid of it?
Look, several of my good friends who are eager to get elected are wandering around saying, on the very first day I'll do X. Okay, and it's terrific. This is why we want to publish our executive orders, because the only executive orders we're going to publish are executive orders that you can actually have. Okay, so we have a group of people who've been in the Bush and the Reagan White Houses who've agreed to help us, so that we'll actually have them. We'll have both a citizen's language and a technical language of every executive order. And if you can't do it for real, we're not doing it. Okay. It's perfectly fair to say that on the very first day, I will send up the proposal to repeal Obamacare, and I will ask the Congress to make its repeal the first order of business. That's appropriate. It's appropriate for the House and Senate Republicans to say that the number one bill they're going to introduce will be Obamacare. I mean, that's perfectly appropriate. But I think it's not practical to suggest that you could, this is a law. You know, it goes back to this whole point. Presidents have relatively limited powers. They don't have unlimited ability to define things.